So if you are single and you are retired with a pension or going to be retired with a pension, then this video is for you. So we listen to all the comments that we hear, and we do a lot of case studies. We do a lot of conversations on married couples with pensions, and we talk about things like the widow's penalty, but we don't talk much about the single person. And so in this video, we want to really specialize in that person and really start to understand what their situation looks like that may be different than someone who is married. And so that's what you can expect on today's episode of Joe Knows Retirement.
Joe knows taxes.
Joe knows the market.
Joe knows Social Security.
Joe knows income planning.
Joe knows pickleball? No.
This is Joe Knows Retirement.
As you know, we do a lot of videos on pensions. That's one of the areas of specialty. We work with people with pensions who only 20% of people have a pension. And we also work with people who have over $1 million, which only 10% of people have a net worth of over $1 million. And so when you combine those two percentages, you get 2% of the U.S. population that has a pension and over $1 million. And so this is what this channel is geared for, is people just like that. And so if that's you, you can go ahead and subscribe below, and we'll make sure these videos keep coming your way. And also, like the videos allows us to reach more people with pensions in this area. And you can always share the video with your friends. We have a lot of people who reach out to us and say, that their friend shared it with them. And so we're always glad that they can find the information that they're looking for there. So let's talk through some of the pros and cons of being single, with a pension, because if you remember the other videos that I talk about the widow's penalty, and that's simply when one spouse passes, you go from married filing jointly taxes to single, and you also lose one of the Social Security benefits. So whether you are watching this and you're single and you're a widow, or maybe you're a widower, or maybe you are just simply single, regardless of your situation, understand you are at a disadvantage versus a married person. And so with that being the case, there's a lot more opportunities that we need to start considering now, knowing that that situation may not get better in the future. Now, if you do plan on getting married in your later years, then maybe it makes sense to wait to utilize some of the strategies that we talk about, or maybe it will make your situation more advantageous moving forward. But in today's episode, we're just going to talk mainly about being single now and expecting to be single moving forward there. So again, that higher tax bracket is something to really be concerned about, that a lot of the single clients we work with and the people that are watching these videos tell us that they're concerned with as well. And so your brackets are going to be cut in half, and so you're going to be closer to get to the 22% or the 24% bracket, or even maybe beyond that in retirement when you're single. And so that's one big consideration that you want to think about and plan for there. And you're also probably going to hit the higher Medicare premium tiers earlier as well. So those are cut in half for someone who is single versus someone who's married as well. So that means that you maybe end up paying more for Medicare, but you get the same coverage as everyone else. And that's simply because your tiers are different than someone who is married there. Also, your Social Security is probably more likely to going to be taxable, especially if you're single and have a pension, because of the way the Social Security tax works. It's called your provisional income. And basically what it says is that if your income's from here to here, then you pay no tax on your Social Security. But if it's from here to here, well, then you're probably going to have to start paying taxes, and it could be 10% of your Social Security could be forced to be taxable, and all the way up to 85% of your Social Security could be taxable. And it's all based on your provisional income, which combines half your Social Security and all your other income and other taxes that could come into play, and you add that up and it gives you a number. And so for someone who is single, that number is going to be less than someone who is married filing jointly. And so it is not as disadvantageous. It's actually a little more advantageous for the provisional income numbers. I think it's about $25,000 and $32,000 if you're married. And so it's actually, they actually give an advantage to single people for Social Security tax. And I actually have a fun story here. We actually had a couple who they're not married, but they're very close, but they don't plan to get married, and they joke and they say it's because of this reason, specifically because of the Social Security disadvantage there. So just keep that in mind as you do your planning moving forward there as well. Another consideration that we often look at with people who are single with a pension is maybe you look at taking the lump sum option. So obviously the options that you have when you look at your pension when you get ready to retire are you can choose a survivorship option and a lump sum. Now, not all pensions options allow you to do that, but for the survivorship, obviously that's going to be something you probably don't do because there's no one to leave that to. And so that's going to give you a higher amount in your monthly pension, which is obviously a good thing, but it is going to lead to more tax considerations that you want to be aware of there as well, and having that higher income that maybe most people won't have if they do take that survivorship option. And then for the lump sum option, the reason why it could make sense to take that, but also I'm going to argue why it could not make sense to take that lump sum. So let's just start why it would not make sense. So not taking that lump sum will allow you to have more in that monthly income for ongoing. So some pensions allow you to take a partial lump sum. So maybe instead of getting $4,000 a month, you would get $3,000 a month. Or maybe it's a full lump sum where it's either $4,000 or you get a large chunk of money that you can do whatever you want with it. So at that time with the clients we work with, we run calculations and reports and numbers to see which makes the most sense. And we actually created our own proprietary pension software to make these types of decisions, to make the decision on the survivorship option, to make sure that our clients are getting the exact data they need, because it's a one-time decision and you can't change it typically. And so we want to make sure we get that decision right. So the first thing is seeing if it even makes sense financially to be able to do it. And obviously it depends on the client's health too, right? If you're single and poor health and you want to leave money behind to your children or maybe to your loved ones, well then maybe it takes sense to take the lump sum so that you have that money in your pocket that you can gift it or inheritance or down the road. And so that may be a consideration that a lot of our clients consider there. If you do have legacy goals, that lump sum may make sense. So one, you may be able to do better with that lump sum than not taking it. We see that often. The second reason though is to make sure that there's something there in your pocket where, because when you pass, a pension may not be able to go to your loved ones in those scenarios. So that could be a reason to take the lump sum if you are single. And then the other reason why it could make sense to take the lump sum is just for tax planning purposes, right? If you have a pension coming in, again, the greatest thing in the world, I'm never telling someone not to take it if it doesn't make sense. That's why you always have to run the numbers. But with that pension, you are stuck with an income each year for the rest of your life that you can't necessarily change. And like I've already talked about in the video, that may force your Social Security to be taxable. That may force you to higher Medicare premium tiers. That may force your required minimum distributions when you get to age 73 or 75. That may start to, when those come in, start to force your income even higher because now you have Social Security, R&D, and that pension on top of that. And so you don't really have any flexibility or control over what your income will be in retirement. You're just kind of stuck into the higher tax brackets and into the other tax situations ongoing. Now, again, not necessarily a bad thing, but something that maybe consider it for a planning item to just make sure you're maximizing there. Whereas if you take the lump sum, well, now you have the flexibility to do things like a Roth conversion or other tax planning strategies to be more strategic about what you want to take out. Do you want to take out from there? Do you want to take out from the Roth that you've been building up? Do you want to just wait until 73 or 75 to make any distributions? So now you have all these early years of a lower income where you can do some other tax planning, items and strategies as well are all going to be considerations there. And as I mentioned with that Roth conversion, let's talk about that next, because this is something that we see many people who are single taking advantage of now, especially if they have a high pension income and if they have a high net worth, as the people we always talk about on this channel, because right now we're seeing that tax rates are probably the lowest they're going to be historically when we look out in time. And obviously it looks like the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is going to get extended, which is good news for the majority of people out there. And so if that happens, we've got some good opportunities now to look and see if a Roth conversion makes sense. And so let's take a step back and talk about what a Roth conversion is. So a Roth conversion is when you simply move it from an IRA to a Roth IRA. And then if we do that, we have to pay the tax on that conversion today. So let's say we have $100,000, we move it from here to here, and we have to pay 20% in taxes. So that means we have to pay $20,000 now. And that gives people heartburn, as it should. But the question becomes is, do we want to pay that tax on the $100,000 now, or let this $100,000 grow to $200,000? And now we have to pay a 20% in tax on $200,000, which is $40,000 in taxes. And that could potentially bump our income higher because now we have a higher amount to pay taxes on as well. So maybe it's not 20%, maybe it's 25%. So that's the idea of why a Roth conversion can make sense, is to remove the appreciation of growth there. But also to be able to take advantage of potentially lower tax brackets here. And so that's where a Roth conversion can make sense. And as I said, you could do that with the lump sum option, or maybe you've already gotten a lot saved in your 401k, or your 403b, or TSP, or that tax deferred investment you've been saving over all these years. That may be something you want to start to adjust now. Again, remember, your income may not get better in the future. Now, if you're planning to get married or you're planning to do something different, well, then maybe your tax brackets will change, and it could make sense to wait to do a conversion until that time, right? So those are all considerations to keep in mind as you're planning moving forward. Or maybe your goal is, I want to leave all this money to my kids, and they're lower income and they're married and they don't have as much saved. Well, maybe it doesn't make sense to do Roth conversions now, and maybe it does make sense to just leave it to them when you pass and let them pay the taxes at probably even lower brackets than you are now. Now, that doesn't always happen, but that is something to consider. Most of the time we see that the children are in a similar tax bracket or higher than the spouse, even with the pension, but those are all considerations to look at. And you also just want to be aware there with the requirement of distributions. If you do want to leave it to the children, and maybe you do plan to live till 90, well, if RMDs start at 73 or 75, you are going to be forced to take out money each year for all of those years. And so that would mean that you couldn't leave your kids that Roth. If you did do a Roth conversion, there is no RMDs on a Roth, so you could let that grow tax-free ongoing. Whereas if you don't do that, well, now the kids are going to have to take that money out, and now it's going to be in an after-tax account versus a tax-deferred or a tax-free type account, with that RMD money that you're taking out. And that just may not be as advantageous for them. Now, the other thing to keep in mind with the Roth conversions of where it also may not make sense if you're single to do that is, determine how charitable you are, right? If you're single and you say, I'm not going to leave any money to any loved ones, I'm just going to leave it all to charities. If that's the case, maybe you don't want to do any Roth conversion at all, because you can just leave all of that money to the charity when you pass tax-free. Or you can start doing something called a qualified charitable distribution when you turn 70 and a half. That's where you give the money from the IRA to the charity, and it's tax-free. And then once you reach that requirement of distribution age, let's say you have to take out $20,000, well, just send all that $20,000 to the charities. You have no tax burden that you have to worry about. So just understanding what your goals are, right? One of our clients, she's a female, single, doesn't have any kids, doesn't plan to give any money to anyone, just plans to give to charities. We're not looking at doing any aggressive Roth conversions there. We're just looking to do subtle ones to make sure that she has the money to live on from the Roth when she's living to be tax efficient. But when she passes, we're just giving all that to the charity. So let's not pay tax on it now when we don't even ever have to pay if we just give it to the charities there. So just understand your goals is going to be important. And then the thing that we tell anyone really, but even the single person specifically on the topics that we've just talked about is, what are you going to do with this wealth when you pass away? Or what are you going to do with this money while you're living, right? Because at the end of the day, you can only do three things with your money. You can spend it, you can give it, and you can gift it. And if you can think of any other things that we can do with our money besides those three that don't fall in those three categories, I'd love to know in the comments just so I don't get this wrong moving forward, because I say that all the time, right? Spend, give, or gift. That's all you can do with your money in retirement. I guess you could give it to the government, but we'll just consider that give. That's a charitable organization, the government. By the way, here's a fun joke for you. Has anyone ever given money to the IRS above and beyond their taxes that they're supposed to pay? I've never seen anyone donate money to the IRS, and so that's why we always talk about I hate taxes. That's why I wrote the book on it, because people typically want to pay less in taxes. Now, if anyone here loves to pay taxes and wants to pay more, then I'm curious if anyone here donates money to the IRS, if that's considered a charitable organization or not. So back to what I'm talking about here is, just making sure you understand your purpose behind your money, but also that you're running the correct analysis and reports to see, hey, how much money can you truly spend in retirement to enjoy all of it? We've got a lot of single clients who do some really fun trips and excursions and experiences, and they live the best life, as we call it. And the reason why is because they have permission to do so, because we've ran the numbers to make sure that they can do whatever they want, whenever they want, with whoever they want, without the chance of financial failure. And having a pension allows you to do more of all three of those, because you have that guaranteed income coming in for the rest of your life that 80% of the population does not have. So for people like you, this becomes more of a reality. Whereas, the 10% of population who has less than $1 million, they may not be thinking of this as much. They may be thinking, I have to continue to remain frugal. I still have to remember to be very diligent in retirement, because if I make mistakes, I could fail. Whereas someone like you with a pension over $1 million, you may not be in that situation. So now it's time to start changing your mind to thinking, hey, how can I enjoy this versus all of those 40 plus years in the past where you thought, how do I save and be frugal? That you can change your mind if you wish to. For some, that's hard to do, and that's not something they want to do, and that's totally fine. But no, if you don't do it, when you do pass, there is no U-Haul behind your hearse there. And so you got to decide, do you want to spend it now, or do you want to give it and gift it when you pass? Or maybe you gift it and give it when you're living too, so you can see where it's going. But if you don't do anything, when you get to the end, you're going to gift it, and that's all that gets to be done. So it's either you get to enjoy it, or you get to see the fruits of it now, or you're going to be allowing someone else to be able to do whatever they want to do with what you've worked hard for. And so just making sure you're making the right decisions of who that goes to, and having the conversations of what do you want it to be used for, so that you're seeing your legacy live out far beyond, your life here on earth. And so that is something that I think is very important for many people to consider. Now, if that's you, if you're the type of person where all this resonate with and you want to have a better plan here moving forward and you do feel like you've been doing a great job up to this point, then you do have an opportunity to schedule a time to talk with our team here. We get a lot of people who watch our YouTube videos, a lot of people who are single with pensions over $1 million that come become a client of ours. And the main reason why is because they need help making that decision. And we even have a lot of married people who move forward with us because one is really sharp on the financial planning side and the other may not know as much, and so they want to make sure someone's there for that spouse who may not be able to know as much about this moving forward or may not want to worry about it. And so if you're the type of person that wants to delegate this, to get it off your hands, but also to make sure you're making the right decision, right? I know one thing we hear all the time is you don't know what you don't know. Then that's where I'd recommend you go get help from a team. Whether that's us or someone else, make sure you find a trusted team who does the 5 pillars of planning that we always talk about, that specialize in people just like you, that 1 million plus, the people with the pensions, to make sure you're getting the right planning that is specialist for you. So if that's you and you want to explore working with us, then go ahead and in the description below to schedule a time. You'll get a link to our scheduling page there. You'll have a short questionnaire, and then we'll schedule a 15-minute call to see if we could be a good fit to work together there. So hopefully you enjoyed today's video, and like I said, subscribe for many more coming. And that's all I've got today for Joe Knows Retirement.